Welcome back to our 16th episode in this 22 and 22 series, where we power rank the remaining 22 teams which are in the Orlando Magic bubble. At the 7th spot, we have the Houston Rockets. Now, the Houston Rockets have been one of the most intriguing teams to watch this season. Since last year and the year before, they're one of the premier teams in the Western Conference, taking the Warriors, the really God Squad Warriors, the Fabulous Five, to 7 games and 6 games respectively in a couple of years. They have actually not done too well this year with the influx of new talent into the Western Conference. With teams like the Lakers and other teams like the Clippers building up historically great squads, the Rockets seem to be poised to be among that conversation with the addition of Russell Westbrook instead of Chris Paul. However, due to the lack of meshing of these two ball-dominant stars, namely Russell Westbrook and James Harden, they struggled a lot early on in the season. However, they flipped a switch in January when they started to figure out what style of basketball allowed both players to be dominant and to play well. Early in the season, James Harden was averaging nearly 40 points a game, while Russell was averaging around 22 points per game on terrible shooting splits. However, after this change in the coaching structure by Mike D'Antoni, one of the premier coaches in the league, Russell Westbrook started averaging crazy number of points on really good efficiency, and James Harden took a little step back, but was still relatively efficient. For reference, here's about a 10-game stretch, and here's the points which Russell Westbrook scored. Starting from January 9th, 34, 30, 31, 35, 32, 28, 45, 32, 39. These are all the points he scored in consecutive games, which is showing that he clearly was becoming a more focal part of the offense. And this new style of play led to reduced minutes for one particular player, who they eventually traded for another player who fit their system. Clint Capella got traded in a massive trade to the Atlanta Hawks, and the Houston Rockets got back a couple of picks, and then they also got back Robert Covington. Notoriously one of the worst players in 2K, but in real life, he is a really good 3-and-D player, and he is definitely one of the more underrated players in the league. He fits really well and takes the role of like a Trevor Ariza last year, but he has additional defense, and the Rockets team has started playing extremely well. This super small ball lineup with PJ Tucker at center has been doing extremely well and surprising some really good teams in the West. Now, going into the bubble, they have a really good team, but Russell Westbrook tested positive for the virus, and we don't know when he's going to be coming back. Hopefully he's going to be coming back in a week or two, but the team should be set. James Harden recently returned from a family matter, and now the team is doing really well. With bench depth and shooters such as PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, Austin Rivers, Ben McLemore, and other players who have been severely underrated, including Daniel House and Robert Covington, I'd really like the future of this Rockets team going into the bubble. Now, looking at the remaining games which they have some really relatively simple games against teams like the Trailblazers, Kings, Spurs, and Pacers, and they have a couple of tougher games. But I think because the Rockets are really good, I think that they will go 5-3 in these 8 games and position themselves as a 4 or 5 seed, facing either the Thunder or the Jazz in one of their first round series, both teams of which they match up extremely well. I really like the prospects of this team, and this is a sleeper team which could make it really far in the playoff due to their pure talent and coaching. All right, this is the part of the video where we give our own personal rankings for the team. Now, for the Rockets, I had them at number 6. I really like the depth and the coaching of this team, and I think that the small ball lineup is going to be very tough for big men like Rudy Gobert and Nikola Jokic to handle. It is a style of play which uses the analytics maestro Mike D'Antoni and puts him into a super fast-paced offense where they can run and space the floor, have a really high pace, have a lot of possessions on the court, and tire other teams out really quickly. Two of the most players with the highest motor, Russell Westbrook and James Harden, two of the best scorers in the league, best passers, best rebounders, and decent defenders for their position, coupled with some very good players who play bigger than they really are, while still having the benefits of their size, including players such as PJ Tucker and Daniel House, make this team a really good contender. If their tallest player on the lineup is 6'7" and they're beating teams like the Nuggets, the Jazz, and possibly even the Lakers or Clippers, this is going to be a revolutionary style of offense for years to come, and this might honestly put the nail in the coffin for traditional big men centers. I really like this team, and I like how they match up against the Jazz because of the Rudy Gobert matchup, and the Nuggets because of the Nikola Jokic matchup, and the Thunder for the Danilo Gallinari and Steven Adams matchup. Additionally, most of those teams don't have very good perimeter defenders for guards like Russell Westbrook and James Harden. As I look at their schedule, there's a few games which I think that they can easily win, and they can overtake teams like the Thunder and the Jazz, who are only a game ahead of them, and move up to the 4th seed, and put them in the conversation to get out of the first round and play the Lakers in the second round. While I don't think they'd make it past the Lakers, I think it's a very well-structured team which can do well this year.
All right. So yeah, I definitely agree with Aki here. James Harden led this team to the conference semifinals last year and the conference finals the year before, and now he also has Russell Westbrook with him, who is a better player, in my opinion, at least currently, than CP3. So I think that they'll be able to definitely repeat their previous success and make it to the conference semifinals, maybe even the conference finals, although that is somewhat unlikely. So I have them at 6th in the rankings.
So I actually had the Rockets quite a bit lower, and I had them at number 9. And this was for a couple of reasons. I think the Rockets are overrated right now. I think they're very top-heavy, like the Lakers. Their main players are just Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and I think it's bad that actually more than half their points per game come from these two players. And I think that's especially risky because that means that their depth isn't going to be as good, and coming off the bench, their players aren't going to play as well. Like, there are a lot of risks to being too top-heavy, and like, for example, having one of them injured as well. And another disadvantage of this top heaviness is inconsistency, because the Rockets won a 4-game losing streak even after implementing this new small ball lineup in around March. They lost to the Knicks. I know, right? The Knicks. They lost to the Magic. They got absolutely demolished by the Clippers. They also lost to one other team that wasn't really that good. So I think the Rockets are somewhat inconsistent at times. But in addition, going into the rest of the bubble, the Rockets have a harder schedule than some of their other similar seeded counterparts, I should say. For example, I think the Jazz have a slightly easier schedule, but even then the Jazz are actually a game ahead of the Rockets. And then also the Thunder definitely have an easier schedule than the Rockets. And the Rockets, they really only have 2 easy games. Other than that, they're facing other teams with really high winning records, such as, I actually don't remember from the top of my head, but you can take my word that it's difficult. So I think the Rockets aren't really in as good as a place as some of the other teams are to succeed. So that's why I put them at number 9, but I think they can still play pretty well.
Well, you heard it from us. We collectively have the Rockets ranked at 7. What team do you think we'll have at 6? Leave that in the comments. And while you're down there, click the notification bell and leave a like on the video. So look at what we'll have tomorrow at 2 p.m. PST, as we will discover what team we will have at number 6. This has been us, the Benchwarmers, and we're signing off. See ya.